Hey, Steph.
Hey, Mary.
Hey, Wes. I need to finish typing something on iLearn for my other class, and I will then focus on you guys. Okay. Be glad you're not in my MinPut class right now, or at least some of you aren't. They have a backlog of assignments to do. That's
What
kind of-
number of science class is that?
Sorry, say that again.
What is the number of that class?
420.
420. Oh, okay. Yeah, I might need to take that next semester or something.
Yeah, so I think we're going to switch to teaching that class, it's me. I think I'm going to end up switching to spring, in part to open up, because normally structural geology and SED/Strat are offered in the fall. And so that you guys don't end up having to take 3 4-unit lab courses all at once, we're trying to spread them out a little bit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So spring, you'll take that. But
yeah, I just might need another, upper division or science class. I think I might only need one more, but and I wouldn't mind like learning more, getting more of a stronger geology background.
Are you doing a BA?
Yeah, I am doing a BA. I mean, I wish I had time to do a BS, but
No, I get it.
A degree and then maybe continue to go to school later.
Yeah, I totally get it. Yeah, if mineralogy, petrology interests you, absolutely take 420.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. But it won't be offered again until next spring.
Next spring. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll see then.
Yeah. See if it works in your schedule. Otherwise, like SED/Strat would be a great class to take if you haven't had that one.
Yeah, I haven't. So, and then that'll be in the fall.
Yeah, that should be in the fall. And Yadi teaches that, and everybody seems to love her teaching.
Oh yeah, I do like Yadi's the teacher too.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So today, I think, so I haven't had a chance to look at your letters to the editor. Did I announce in class on Monday that I had scored a lot of your older assignments? I think I'm caught up except for the letters to the editor or your congressperson.
I don't think you told us, but I got a bunch of emails saying that you graded a bunch of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely let those the notifications go out. So you guys, I don't ever see those, so I don't know for sure, but I assume that you got something. Does it include my feedback in those emails, or does just directs you to iLearn?
I think it just directs to the iLearn.
Okay. I'm just looking to see right now. Okay, so that would include the bios, the resumes, your cover letter, and it should be the drafts as well as the final versions of those. And your elevator pitches, which I gave everybody full credit for that. So everybody did a great job. And yeah, that is it. So it's just the of the assignments that you've submitted so far, it's just the letter to the editor that is outstanding, which I'm glad, because that means that you guys can see how you're doing in the class. I want to make sure you get, I know that I've been giving you lots of written feedback, but I want you to know that you've got scores as well. That, I mean, I call them scores instead of grades, because the grade in the end isn't necessarily tied to that score, the percentage that you're given. Because what I do with all of my classes is at the end of the semester, I take into consideration a lot of things when I'm giving grades. I look for whether you've participated in class, and that includes a lot of things. That could be showing up synchronously, but you don't need to, right? You're totally able to take this class asynchronously if you need to. It includes turning in assignments and, you know, generally meeting the deadlines. Improvement, you know, records of improvement over time. And that could be in terms of participation, in terms of meeting the deadlines, in terms of just how well you're doing with the assignments. For the most part, I have been scoring your assignments based on whether all of the required elements are there, and not so much whether the grammar and the spelling are correct, although that kind of goes into everything else. Because usually, like, if you've met all of the bullet points you're supposed to meet for any given assignment, then you've probably considered all those other things too. Today, so are there any questions about any of those assignments that I gave back to you?
I just want to say one thing. Sorry for not getting you the letter to the editor, but I just wanted to let you know that, like, I found a really good article about, like, police brutality and police reform in the United States, and it has, like, a lot of really good points, and it kind of looks at, like, you know, the reforms that we need to make, like, in a really like scientific, like, point of view.
Nice.
With a lot of, like, data and stuff. So just want to let you know that I am like, it's kind of a lengthy article. That's why it's kind of taking me a little while to like process it, and then, but I'll try to get you that soon.
That's fine. I'm not going to touch it until the weekend for sure.
Okay.
So you're basically good until then. I just want to make sure though that if you don't, my main thing with turning things in on time is, do I have your assignment by the time I'm ready to actually, like, go read through them all?
Mm-hmm.
It's nice if I can do all those at once and I don't have to go back later and, like, find one assignment and finish it. But it's also not a huge deal if that happens. You're not the only one that has an outstanding letter, because I only had like 5 out of the 10 students in class. So you're okay. But I would like to get those in time for the weekend.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is, if you're behind on an assignment, then I worry that you're going to get behind on the next thing, because the current thing that we're doing in class. And I want to come back to that now and talk about the research. I'm calling it a research paper. Maybe I could call it a short report. It's going to be a relatively brief summary of what you decide to look into with regard to the earth sciences workforce. And last week we talked about finding articles, finding journal papers, finding whatever resources, government reports, thesis, whatever it might be, using the library resources, using Google Scholar, even Sci-Hub if you had to resort to that. And I want to talk a bit about how to cite those references. Have you discussed citations of sources before in your other classes?
Yeah, mostly MLA and APA.
Okay, but like how to actually, what to type and where to type it within your text. Here, let me find an example. And I also want to talk about formatting those references too. Why don't I find, actually, let's leave that for the end. And right now, let's look at on iLearn. If you go to the current week, which is week 7, let me share this. Okay, So week 7, I've got the geosciences workforce research, and then I've got some guidelines for you. And what I did was I created this document to try to break the assignment down into chunks so that it'll end up being kind of like an outline, but go ahead and download that Word document and then we'll walk through it together. We talked a bit about the sources of data that you might use, and that included the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it included like the AGI, the American Geosciences Institute, their reports that they have on various things. Oh, let me just go back to week 6. I didn't bother moving all of those links that I set up for you in week 6. So there were like, I don't know, 20 of them. And this is all just writing stuff that we've covered, but this is the link to the workforce data from the AGI. And then I broke it down, the Bureau of Labor Statistics website. I went and found the actual pages that listed the different job titles so that you could look at salaries, for example. But for generic geoscientists, but that does not include hydrologists, then here's the link for the hydrologists, and then for mining, for petroleum engineers. And geologists who end up studying a lot of strat type material, those are the geologists who end up going to the petroleum companies that like often frame themselves as energy companies these days. It's more PC sounding or environmental sounding. They go and they will end up being called a petroleum engineer. Then if you're more interested in teaching, this is atmospheric, earth, marine, and space scientists. This is post-secondary teachers. So post-secondary means like community college. It could be 4-year university, kind of depends on how they break that down. Then environmental scientists and environmental engineers. And you can see how they designate those different careers. So whatever, I think I've covered everybody's specialty in the class. So hopefully one of those, does anybody not see what they're interested in for a future career listed here? While you think about that, I also have a couple of things talking about women in the labor force. And so you might be interested in looking at that. And then diversity, if you're interested in diversity in the earth sciences, because earth sciences, apart from physics, I think we're probably the worst physical science when it comes to diversity. And that means inclusion of women and BIPOC, generically all people of color. This article is a really good place to start if you're interested in that. And it's a must read, not that it's required, just that it's a great paper. And if you'd like to know more, it's titled No Progress on Diversity in 40 Years. And it was published in Nature Geoscience. And so it is a geoscience focused article. And it's not that long either. Okay, so there's a bunch of resources where you can go to find information. And I have not structured this. I have not told you exactly what to do because I want you to discover things for yourself and explore the data that's out there. And then I'll give you more details about how long this should be, where you should include the references at the end, how many references you might need, that kind of thing. I'll tell you later. Right now, I just want you to think about what question you might address. What would you like to know more about? Does anybody have an idea what they want to look at? Not yet. Okay. Then that means you're going to need to start clicking through those pages and to learn more. And you may just need to go down some rabbit holes, just like follow links until you get to something that inspires you. So I want you to come up with a research question, and it would be great if you could do that today. If you could just establish what kind of question you're going to answer today. And it doesn't have to be super specific. You can refine it later. And then the hook of your paper should be like, what's interesting about it? What is an interesting fact that might make somebody else curious to read your paper? Mostly being me, but you'll probably also read, excuse me, each other's papers, at least drafts. And then what I've done is broken it down into five sections where, like, if you find 5 resources, or let's say up to 5 that you might use, I've given you 5 spots where you list the source with the author, if that's appropriate, the date. You might need to include the URL if it's an online source, which probably it will be an online source in a lot of these cases, and what the main idea, what the subject in that source is. Then start listing some facts that you learn from that source. So as you read, jot these things down. You're going to be just typing in tidbits about what you learn. And again, it doesn't have to be, it can be pretty specific. It can be more generic. You can extend this list if you want, right? Just hit return, add another one. And then, you know, if you can say anything to summarize what it was that you learned from that source, then you might include that down here at the bottom. And then repeat for the different sources. So we'll spend some time doing that today. I'm going to break it down. We'll, depending on how many students are in class today, we may just talk as a group, or I might put you in breakout rooms, only if there's like close to 10 of us, I think. Otherwise, we'll just talk amongst ourselves. But so I want you to share with each other what it was you found. And hopefully in sharing and in talking about it, you will be able to, like, anytime you try to teach somebody or just tell somebody else about something that you found, you have to find the words to do that. And that helps you to kind of process what it was that you read and learned. So that's one step. And then you might come here. Now this could be, so that discussion where you're sharing each other's ideas could lead to new ideas where you will go back and do some more, spend some more time just digging into those links and have some more ideas. And then ultimately, if you've got a theme going and you want to do draw some comparisons, compare and contrast, like, for instance, let's say you found a source that compared, you know, and I'm just bringing this up because it's something that I'm interested in, salaries for geoscience post-secondary teachers. Like, what do the salaries look like at different institutions, and how do the salaries for the men differ from the women, and see if there's anything there. You know, one question is, are women's salaries lower than men's if they're doing the same job? Things like that. So you might have a similar idea, like if you're going to dig into some diversity issues, like maybe you want to compare salaries for different populations of people. So you can draw some, compare and contrast those ideas in this section. And then let's see, this last bit. I guess this is asking you like what additional information might you need? What would be the next steps? Like, what else do you need to know in order to answer the research question that you came up with? And here's a place to jot down some ideas there. You know, there's, I don't know, 8-10 lines here to type. You don't have to fill it up, but you also don't have to constrain yourself to this amount of space. You can just keep going and just create more space as you need. I've given you a Word document, so, right, you can expand it as you want, as you like. If you want to include some quotes. Now, when you're writing, you should not write, when you're writing scientifically, you should not use a lot of quotes. It should be a rare occurrence, in fact. But as you're doing the research, you can certainly use the quotes as a place to kind of bookmark a piece of information. So if you want to copy and paste, as long as you're putting that in quotes and as long as you know your source, you're good to go. And then later we can talk about how to paraphrase and put things in your own words. And then like maybe there's some other results. Maybe there are some charts or tables that you can take a screenshot of or grab the JPEG from the website and pop it into the Word document and just add it there. And then for your report on this, I guess I would rather call it a report than a paper, because a paper sounds like it could be like long and really involved. And I really want this to be focused and kind of short. I forgot what I was saying. Yeah, so you could definitely include those tables and charts and etc. Make sure that you write down somewhere, if it's not included on the chart itself or on the table itself, where did it come from? What's your source? Make sure you write that down, even if you have to just like type from the BLS site, and then you can include like HTTP and then give the website. And then you can paste in the chart into the Word document. Okay, so right now, this is all data gathering, and we will discuss the writing up later. So this is data gathering and idea generation that we're going to do today. And this is a place, this is probably not where you're going to get to today, but a place to draw some conclusions. You will want to, and I said we'll talk about formatting references, but I've given you a place here to list your references. So let me just point you to a place. Well, tell you what, I'm going to get you started and then I'll find that information and then we'll talk about it after you get started. For now, make sure you're gathering this information. You want the author's names, the year of the publication, the title, if it's in a journal, what the journal name is, if it refers to actual page range, if it's a printed journal, you're going to include that. If it's an online publication, you're going to include the date that you retrieved it from the website. Oh, and I should say, and URL. So you want the actual link to that source. So you can list those there, but remember, I mean, this could be a summary of what you end up including here, or sorry, page 2, what you've got here. So you're going to write down your source information here and then list your facts. You could even use this section, like you could create space and add your tables and charts here so that you know that's where it came from, is from this source itself. So use this Word document in a flexible way. Use it however will be handy to you for retrieving that information later. Is this pretty clear what your goal is, like what you're doing here?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, does the topic have to be on earth science?
What do you want it to be on?
It's just a question. I'm not sure.
Well, this was supposed to be about the workforce. So my goals were to get you to dig into some part of the geosciences, broadly speaking. If you wanted to look into, let's say, park rangers or something like that, if you could find information about the National Park Service and pop that in there, that would be fine. I'm trying to get you to think about future careers.
Okay.
Of course, I also say, like, you know, you're looking into careers and there's like this diversity information and the like status of women in the geosciences too. So if you wanted to go down a route that was more diversity related, that would be okay with me too.
And then the articles, the source articles, they have to be like from science journals, or could they be like website articles, or what kind of?
Well, so I'm starting you here. I'm starting you with the AGI data, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and some of this diversity data. So some of these are from journal articles, but these are all from websites that link to something about the labor force. So you are not limited to just these sources. You can certainly go outside of those sources. If you've got a different idea that you're inspired by and that you prefer to write about for this report, that's probably okay with me. But please talk to me about it, and so that we can refine it and make sure that you're kind of doing a similar type of thing, and that also that you're not biting off more than you can chew. Because like I said, I want this to be a short, focused report and not a long research paper. So why don't you start looking? We'll take the first part of class and I'm just going to have you start digging. You can start here. You could start with Google Scholar. You could start with the library site. I can add those links to iLearn for you. I'll add a link to the library, but Google Scholar, you know how to get to, right? Just Google Scholar, scholar.google.com. Does anybody have other questions or anything to do with that? Like I said, I want you to write about something you care about. And the goal, like the reason that I came up with this assignment is because I thought you would care at this point in your career about future careers. At this point in your education about future careers. And that's why I pointed you here. But if there's something else that can be a focus topic that you really dig and you want to learn more about, let's talk and it'll probably be okay. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. I see that some people jumped in after I got started. I just want to make sure that you're seeing that you grab this document. So in week 7, you want to grab under Geosciences Workforce Research, use this document to scaffold your research paper. I'm going to call this what is that? Is that, am I missing an R? I was missing an R. Let's call it a report instead of a paper, just because paper sounds long. So to scaffold it, break it down, use that document, and then, here's an example. Why don't we look at the example? I forgot that I put this here. So there's an example short research paper and there's an example scaffolding. So here's an example of what the scaffolding looks like. And this one happens to be, how does color affect somebody's mood? You know, this has nothing to do with what we're doing, but there's a question. And then here's the hook. So here's an example of what they're saying, like, oh, you know, red makes people angry and blue makes people sad, and, you know, something like that, some premise like that. And then the scaffolding part where you're looking through the literature or online sources or whatever it is. For each source, list the author, the journal article, if there's an actual source. If it's a website, include the URL, include a date, and what the main idea of that source is. And then include some facts that you find about that source, right? So there's some facts. Pink is tranquilizing, blue is calm. Oh. And then here's a brief, like a 1-sentence summary of what the conclusion was from that source. Move to the next one. Here's the next one. Another idea, some more facts, another conclusion, and just do that for a few sources. I haven't said how many you should have to go to, but let's say between 3 and 5 today, different pages that you might actually use as a source. And let's see how far we can get. And then here's the example of like, here are the main ideas, here are the main ideas laid out there. Here's how to explain those ideas. And you can compare and contrast the ideas that you found. Then here's what you would need to like test. Here are the next steps, because when you end a paper, you end a report, you kind of like, you can end it with like a summary of what you found, but really like what you want to say is, okay, the next steps are, or so I'm going to follow this up with X, Y, and Z, or to learn more about this, we really need a survey, or we really need a specific report on X in order to answer this question. And then some results. The references they've got here, these are all websites. And so they're listing an author, a year, the title of the article, the date retrieved, and here's the URL. That's a good generic format for an online source. If it is a journal article, you're going to format those a little bit differently. And I gave that to you. It's not on this example, but I gave that to you in the Word document. I included author, first initial, year, title of the article, journal name, page range, etc. And then you want to add like extra information if it's a website. So that's what that is. Then let's go back. Oops, too far. Here we are. And then an example short research paper. This is the example that's based on this scaffolding document that I gave you. This one is 2 pages long. Well, okay, it's, to be fair, it's more like 3 pages long, but it's got a couple of tables. It's got a list of things. So it's like 2.5, something like that. Notice that there are different sections. Like here's a research question. Here's a review of the literature. You can organize this, and I encourage you to organize your writing with the use of headings and subheadings. It helps the reader to organize the content in their head. So if you were going to, like this one starts every paragraph with like, okay, Wallard said, Smith said, Johnson said. Okay, that's one way of doing it. Or you might actually include, you could include subheadings that for each of those different subtopics. You can do it that way. I encourage you to take screenshots of tables or figures or anything that make the point that you're trying to make. And then don't forget that you're going to be keeping track of all the references. So make sure if you take a screenshot or you're including data that you can cite the source and write it down now. Don't save that for later because you'll forget, I guarantee it. Okay, so there's an example that's longer than I really intended. I was hoping for like 2 pages, but if you're going to include figures or tables, I can see how it might stretch to 3. So probably in the end, it'll be between 2 and 3 pages total, not including references, but including your figures and tables. That's loose, right? If you needed to go a little bit over, you can. If it was a little bit under 2, that's okay too. But that's the sort of amount of text that we're talking about. And in that example, also notice that they use, it's essentially single space. It might be 1.2 spacing. It's something close to single spacing. It's not double spaced. I don't know how you guys feel about that. I know that MLA and those forms, I think, require double spacing. When I write, I actually don't like double spacing because I like to be able to see where I came from and where I'm going next when I'm typing something. And if it's double spaced, I can't see that. I'll leave that up to you. But what I'm thinking of is 2 to 3 single space pages or 1.2 space pages. Okay. Again, don't worry about the length right now. What I want you to worry about now, or not worry, but this is where I want you to focus your mind, is data gathering. I want you to start the finding of sources and the listing of facts. Hopefully it's around a fairly focused research question, but like I said, if you come up with something now, you can refine it later, especially after you start digging. You may want to refine it. Okay, but jot down the ideas that you've got now, and let's see where you get. Okay.
I was a little
So-
confused about the.
Sorry, go ahead.
What's the research question? I guess supposed to be concentrated on, or like?
That's up to you.
Okay, so it's just anything.
It's really anything that interests you. It's not, well, okay. Dennis asked if it could be, if it had to be about geosciences. And I said, okay, well, not necessarily, but I wanted this to be something that you care about. And and I focused, and I'm trying to get you to think about future careers. So that's why I sent you in the direction of the AGI data and the BLS data. But if you're interested more in diversity, maybe that you want to start down here and follow the, if you find a really good paper like this, No Progress on Diversity in 40 Years, follow some of those sources, go dig up their sources and see what else you can learn from those sources. That's certainly something that I do as a scientist. I'm constantly I'm like, oh, that sounds really interesting. I better go look that paper up because that sounds like it's got some good stuff in it. Definitely do that. And don't just rely on the links that I've given you here.
Okay, thank you.
If you're having a hard time coming up with a question, I guess I would say start by following these links, see if anything inspires you. If you're having a hard time, let's talk about it. But as we're doing this, I'm going to have you guys, now there's like 8, 9 of you in class today. So I may break you up into like 2 breakout groups, 2 smaller rooms where you can actually share what you found. And maybe you'll get some ideas through sharing. Okay. I know this is a little loosey-goosey, and I realize that stresses some people out to not have like this is what you're trying to answer. I'm giving you the freedom to answer, to write about what you care about and write about something that interests you, because the writing is so much easier when you care about it. And presumably if any of you are going to go on to a career in the geosciences, there are certain things that you care about more, like, maybe Sarah is more interested in mining. Maybe you want to go dig up some of those statistics and look at, the probably horrible diversity in mining. It's probably a bunch of old white dudes. So maybe that's a road you want to go down, but maybe not. Maybe you decide to read about something else. So I'll leave it up to you, but let's take the first 15 minutes now, 15 to 20. So we'll go to 12:55 or 1 o'clock. And I'd like you to go to iLearn and in week 6, follow some of these links and start reading. And right now you're not going to necessarily like read a ton of articles, scan them, see what's there, and use the Word document to organize what it is you find. Maybe you decide to toss out, like maybe the first place you go, you actually don't end up using. That's fine. But jot down what you find in case you want to come back to it. Okay. Any other questions? I know this is, even though it's loosey-goosey in terms of like the topic and what you're choosing, hopefully this format of the Word document will help you to get thoughts down on, get them down, get you started towards compiling, comparing and contrasting and summarizing what you find. All right, so go ahead and do that. I'll be here for questions. If you need to mute in order to focus, that's okay. I will try to call you back using the chat as well. Okay. But let me know if you've got questions, and good luck. I'm going to stop sharing now and let you guys go to your own browsers.
stop myself from doing it. But it is hard to focus. My other thing is just like, I guess it doesn't really bother me all that much, but watching a TV or I'm bored. I was watching a TV show last
Okay, I'm going to bring you back in just a couple of minutes. I just wanted to let you know that we're almost at 1 o'clock. And so jot down the last few thoughts where you are, and then we'll regroup in a second. Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Are there any questions with what you found so far?
I have a question. is our research paper supposed to be a comparison based, or can we just like, I'm trying to focus on bridges for environmental scientists, and I don't know if I should just like write down everything or I should be comparing it to other.
You can start simply by a review of what it is you find.
Okay.
And if you find, if the topic lends itself to some comparisons,
Mhm.
then you might want to go like explore, compare and contrast ideas.
Okay.
But it can also simply be like here's what I found.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. I'm just putting together some resources in the current week on iLearn, a week 7. I'm adding some information on citing formatting the references. I give you a couple examples. There's a GSA reference guide, and then there's a JPEG that includes like a description of how you should cite a website versus a journal article sort of thing. And I'm going to add another Word document that gives you ideas about like the differences between like if you include a book, if you include a it's compares journal articles, books, and edited like special volume. Sometimes when you find a paper, it's in with another collection of other papers, and so you have to list the editors and the name of the whole book included with the article that you're interested in. So examples like that. And let's see what else. And I also discuss or give you examples about when you're typing a sentence, how do you format the citation within the sentence? Let me just give me one more second, and then I will pop that on iLearn too, and we can look at that. For now, though, remember, just use the formatting in that document I gave you as a place to record the author, title, year, all that. Any other questions? I'm surprised there aren't more questions, actually. Are you feeling lost or just getting started and so don't know yet exactly?
Just getting started.
Okay. Thanks for the feedback. Okay. Would it be helpful to share some ideas now or to have another 15-minute segment where you dig in some more, maybe to a different source?
I think it'd be helpful if we had shared ideas now.
Okay.
Lost, yeah.
Okay. Why don't I put you, I'm going to put you into 2 breakout groups. And I know some people hate the breakout groups, but I think we all know, pretty much know each other now, at least as members of class. And I think in a smaller group, it'll be easier to share ideas. Actually, there are 9 of us. I think I'm going to do 3 breakout groups. So it'll be 3 of you in each group. I think that'll really make a difference. So give me a second. I'm going to randomly assign this. So I want to do 3. Okay. And I will give you a warning when we come back, but I'll give you about 10, 15 minutes to share ideas. So I would like you to go around, each of you talk about what you're thinking about, like what topic you're researching, and what you found so far and where you're going. And if you could, the other people in the group ask questions, and then just share ideas, spend the additional time just brainstorming if you need to. Okay. All right, here we go. I guess you guys were done. Was that helpful?
Yeah, it was for me at
Okay.
least.
Okay, good. Hey, if it helps a few of you, that's great. Well, I'll wait until everybody returns, but if you do have questions, please feel free to ask. Here we go. All right.
So just like one question I have is,
Sure.
it's supposed to be something kind of statistical, right?
It doesn't have to be, but that's if you were going to end up focusing on the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it's bound to have some statistics in it.
Mhm.
But it
Like,
doesn't
is it like
have
more
to.
like based sorry to, like who, like the job field, like who gets those jobs, or where people are more likely to have more opportunities in that job field, like it, or is it like, could it be like a statistic, like while you're on the job, like uh dangers of doing certain jobs or something like that?
Oh, okay. Well, sure. I bet can you find that data?
Yeah, probably.
Is that what you're interested in doing, is trying to find out like,
Well, maybe, but yeah, that was also just kind of like an example. Like,
yeah, okay, okay.
it could be either though.
Yeah.
Or should we focus more on just like the opportunities of certain?
No, that is totally up to you. It
Oh,
really
okay.
is up to you. Like if you were particularly concerned about, you know, if you were going into petroleum engineering and you were concerned about the dangers of drilling and you wanted to like find out more about that, the geologists aren't even involved in the drilling. They've got guys to do that. But just as an example, no, you can go in whichever direction you like. What I'd given you there with the AGI and the BLS links was just a starting point.
Okay. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions that came out of the breakout rooms? Okay. Let me go over just a little bit about the references. So I'll share with you. We have a bit of class left and we're going to need to continue this next week. And I haven't given you an updated schedule yet. Everything on iLearn is current. And so I'll leave you messages there about what we're up to. And so in week 7, I added some notes up here. Like this is kind of a summary of what we're doing and when I hope we'll be able to, where to find things and what we've done in class. So I summarized what we talked about on Monday about your writing. And then I point you to the resources in week 6 there. And then I also talk about looking for information on formatting your references. And so I've given you a few things. There's this diagram, which I included because it was just a good example of how to cite a website. So author's name, initial, date of the publication, the title of the web page, the URL. Does that say ULR? I think it does. It's supposed to be URL. And then the date you accessed it. And then this is giving you the other 2 things. It was mostly for the website citation. And then I gave you this guide. The GSA reference guide gives you a ton of examples on how to format various types of publications. And so this is how you cite an abstract, a book, a chapter in a book, um, a comment, discussion, reply, that's a type of publication, a computer program, a database, a guidebook, a map, journal article, something that hasn't been published yet, but that is going to be. These are US Geological Survey open file reports, papers, proceedings of different conferences, a thesis, and websites. So it gives you a variety of ways to cite. And I like the format because it uses a pretty generic style that's very close to MLA and those other ones, but you list the authors. You don't list you list the last names and the initials, right? List all of them. Don't write Aslan et al. That's what you do in the text. That's not what you do in the references. In the references, you list all of the authors. You give the year, you give the full title. Oh, I happened to pick one in a guidebook. Let me pick a simpler one. I want a journal article is what I want. Here we go, down here. So then you got a title, you've got the journal article. Usually it's the volume number and then a page range is what you're after. And then we talked about the document locator number, the DOI number. If it's a newer publication, it will probably have a DOI number. So you should include that too. What else? That's pretty good. So that just gives you, that's just overall useful as a geoscientist, this guide. And then I put together this, I call it a template. I don't know what to call it exactly. It should probably actually be called guidelines for your references. And so some bullet points, the main takeaways. You need to cite all of your references, but you're only in your list of references, you only include the ones that you actually cite within your report, right? If you read something, but you didn't include it in what you wrote up, it doesn't get included in the references list. You should include your sources for the figures, tables, anything like that. Data, obviously. This probably won't come up, but no personal communications should be included in the list. So if you had talked to me and I gave you some data from my research and you wanted to include a reference to that data, but you didn't have an article, you just had a discussion with me, you could actually, usually you would include that within the text of what you write. You know, the Indian continent collided with Asia and 57 million years ago, PersCom, or it would be M.Leach, PersCom. You put that in parentheses, but you don't include that in the reference list. That, like I said, that probably won't come up here. The list should be alphabetical in order by the last name of the first author. So in this case, you've got Silverstone, Drever, Zimmerman. You would include Drever first, then Silverstone, then Zimmerman. If you have multiple articles by the same author, and sometimes that happens because the same people write more than one paper on similar topics. So it totally happens all the time. What you would do then is you alphabetize by the first author's last name first, and then you go to the second author's name if you need to. So if it's like Silverstone and Axon, but then another paper is Silverstone and Drever, you would do Silverstone Axon first, Silverstone Drever. You also include the oldest publication first and then move to the newest. And this is just in case it gets complicated. I'm explaining this. And if you have like, this article would be referenced as a Silverstone et al. 1995 and others. That's the Latin for it. If there was a Silverstone and Axon, just a 2-author paper, you would list that first in your in the references cited. And if there was just a Silverstone on her own, you would list Silverstone 2010, then Silverstone and Axon 2001, then Silverstone et al., but all of these authors 1995. It would do it in that order. Now, and this kind of duplicates some of what was included in that GSA resource, but I also added this section down here at the very bottom, which is some examples of how you would cite your sources within the text that you're writing. And so, and I just made up the statistic. This is, I don't know what I just did there. I just made these sentences up and I invented some authors. So you make a statement that uses some statistics. 11% of tenured track faculty at four-year colleges and university are women. And I cite Maneka Vasagam and et al. 2010. Okay, so then that just comes at the end of the article. And so this would be, you know, a longer list of authors, but you just list the first author and then et al. Make sure you notice what the punctuation looks like. Maybe I make it 500. They need like something between 200 and 500. We shouldn't have to go from 200 to 500. It's ridiculous. Anyway, okay. So when you write et al, you're writing et is a full word. Al is an abbreviation. And so it has a period after it. And then you add a comma after the period before you list the year. So this is in the case of a multi-author paper. Yeah, I know you got to go, Zeph. See you. Then if it's a 2-author paper, you would list Sanchez and Barr 2018. And so you could, and this is just a different way of showing how you would write the reference at the start of a sentence. So you don't include them all in parentheses. You list the authors and then include just the year in parentheses. And then you can make your statement. If you had 2 references that you wanted to cite for a particular fact, let's say both of these papers cited this similar information, and you wanted to include citation of both of those papers, you would list the Maneka Vasagam paper first, et al. 2010, semicolon, then Sanchez and Barr 2018. Notice that I put the older paper first and then the newer paper second. It also happens to be alphabetical. But the point is you need to pay attention to both. When you're listing within the text, you list the oldest papers first and then alphabetical order. And so I gave you another example down here. So let's say that there are multiple sources that you want to list. I say list your oldest to newest, and then alphabetically. So I gave you some examples. Leach et al. 2005, semicolon, Gio and, it's supposed to be, this is an actual person. Gio and Desagoye 2018, semicolon, and then Vasquez et al. 2020, and then Waters 2020. So Vasquez V comes before W, so they have the same year. And so then you resort to using alphabetical order. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Does anyone have any questions about how that works? Anytime that you pick out a piece of information from a source, it might be a statistic. It might be a statement about when something happened, like the timing of something, or it might be you're just referring to a particular report. You need to include a citation of that for that data or for that piece of information. If it's not something that's like general knowledge, then it should have a citation. This is something that takes practice, certainly. When you have your own ideas, or if you're drawing comparisons, like you want to compare this source to that source, that idea doesn't need a citation when you're making the comparison, but you still have to cite those sources when you're referring to them, right? Okay, so I wanted to leave this here just because I know that there is oftentimes some confusion about how to list your references within the text, what the punctuation looks like, and the order in which things happen. Overall, remember you're using alphabetical order, starting with your last author first. And these reports, they should have, I would say, probably at least 3 to 5 references for your reports. And that fits within the structure of what did I call it? The template that I gave you, the scaffolding, that document. Oh, I moved it already. This guy. So give me an idea, this one here that I'm talking about. Give me an idea, how many websites did you get to so far? Like how many ideas have you found? I'm curious, like the speed at which you're working, and just to gauge how much time I should give you in class and that sort of thing.
I really only got into one in depth.
Okay. Did you find anything good?
Yeah, I just used the link that you provided from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics on women in the labor force.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you might, if that's the road you're going to go down, I would definitely encourage you to look at that that paper, like No Progress in 40 Years, that one.
Mm-hmm.
That talks about women too. It's not, when it comes to the sciences, women are part of the diversity. It's not just people of color, just FYI.
Yeah, definitely.
We've got like 5 minutes left. So I'm curious if anyone wants to ask about something they found, or next steps, like where do you go from what you did find to how do you find the next idea? Like what's going on?
I have a question about my research question.
Sure.
I
Okay.
just want to see if you think it's okay to do.
Yeah.
So my question, sorry, just let me pull it up so I don't. So I said, what do the lawyer demographics look like in California? Is that an okay place to start?
Of course it is. Yeah,
Okay.
that's your interest. And yeah, you can start there. I wonder if you'll run out of interesting things to say pretty quickly if it's just like what are the, who makes up the population of lawyers in California, but
Right.
see where it takes you.
I already have a hook too, because it's actually kind of interesting.
Oh, tell me.
2/3 of the lawyers are white in California, even though
Wow.
white people make only like 40% of the population.
Wow.
And then Latinos like myself, they
Yeah.
are 7% of the lawyers in California, even though they make up 35% of the population.
We need more Latino lawyers.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, awesome. And I'm glad that you took it to law, because that's what you're interested in. And that's your next step in your career. So I'm glad that you felt able to just go that direction. Were you able to find the Bureau of Labor Statistics site where it talks about lawyers?
Yeah, I have that whole page, and then I also found like the CA bar, like the website has every demographic for every person who's registered.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I'll be curious to see what you find, but I'm glad you found something of interest for yourself.
Thank you.
Does anyone else want to bounce any ideas off me or the rest of us? If not, I think we'll wrap it up today. At least I can end this class on time. I haven't been doing so well in my MIMPEC class ending on time. Please try to like dig some more into those websites and start filling out that template that I gave you, the scaffolding, and try to find different sources and start listing some facts. Okay. And then Monday, I hope that we can discuss what you found and maybe have another breakout group and start refining your research question. And we'll go from there and start actually writing something. Okay, but we'll use class time to make that progress too. You do a bit at home, we'll do a bit in class too. Okay.
Sounds great.
Okay,
Alright.
well, I'll see you next week if I don't see you in MIMPET, and have a good weekend.
I have a really quick question. I think
Sure.
you probably already mentioned this, but when is this due?
I have not given you a due date yet.
Okay.
Right now, we're just taking steps. So make some progress, like try to get to the, at least visit 3 to 5 websites between now and Monday, write down some facts.
Okay. Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure. Bye.
Bye.
I'm just leaving. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
You. Bye.
Bye.
Can I